folks, welcome back. It's been some time now. What with? Hey, folks, welcome back. It's been some time now. What with? Hey, folks, welcome back. It's been some time now. What with? Hey, folks, welcome back. It's been some time now. What with? Hey, folks, welcome back. It's been some time now. What with? Hey, folks, welcome back. It's been some time now. What with? Hey, folks, welcome back. It's been some time now. What? Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, there was a open window, and apologize for that. Wow, that was that was definitely a loop there. My apologies to everybody for that. That's you should be able to hear me now. Wow, that was I had a window open from earlier that I didn't realize was still open. All right, so that solves that problem. So welcome back. It's been a bit of time since Venant and I have had a chance to chat. And what's happened in the meantime is there have been elections, assassination attempts, the passing of dear comrades and fellow veterans. And we're going to talk a little bit about all that stuff today. And so let's get into it. Let me give my greetings to none other than Venant Dutoit. Venant Handit, what are you up to today?
Yes, good evening. No, I'm fine. It's very, very cold in South Africa currently. And we can feel it. The winter is finally here, very late this year, but for the past week. And it looks like it's going to be cold during the rest of this week as well.
Well, in fact, it has been quite cold. I mean, look, I was in heaven when I was there a few weeks back. It was wintertime in South Africa, but it was my kind of temperature. Walking around with shorts, people looked at me a little funny, but I enjoyed it. But I will admit it was kind of chilly. I was in the Vaal Triangle and got up in the morning, and it was, because it was damp right there on the river, it was a little chilly that morning. But then, of course, after I left, all the snow hit in the Western Cape. It also hit in the Drakensberg and elsewhere. But did you avoid the snow in Uppington, or have you gotten any snow?
This morning, something very weird happened. And about 100 kilometers from here, between Grobler's Hoop and Griquas-Stad, there was snow. And the guys stopped and they filmed it and put it on Facebook. So, not here in Uppington itself, but a little bit of it in the Kalahari, that side, yeah.
Okay. Well, look, it's not unheard of. I lived in Botswana. We had snow. It was a rare event, but it wasn't unheard of. So I'm not surprised to see it there. But, we've got people busy running around calling climate change, people who ignore the history of meteorological data. Anyway, but that's a whole other story. So there's a lot been happening there. You and I didn't get a chance to meet on this last trip. Busy schedules. We tried to work it out, but just didn't quite work out. But I did meet with someone else from your organization. We had a bit of time together, had a breakfast. Rob is a dear friend, and it was a good experience. Had a nice chat there in Pretoria. And I covered the elections in South Africa. I don't know how things went in Uppington. I covered it in Western Cape. I imagine it was pretty quiet up there and not too eventful.
Yeah, it was quiet up here. Well, the voting was as usual. And the ANC won again in the Northern Cape. But I must say that there is the other parties all rise up a bit. But on the ground, nothing has actually changed. It is very much similar as it used to be.
Well, and that's exactly what I told folks. I said, even if somehow the ANC was out of power, nothing is going to change overnight. And with this so-called Government of National Unity, which is really just a grand coalition of sorts, nothing's going to change in the near term. I was interviewed by Biz News on Friday, just appeared today, asking me about what my thoughts for the Government of National Unity are. Are things, what's going to happen? Can the other parties influence the ANC? I said, no. The ANC controls the entire security cluster. They control intelligence, justice, police, military, everything. And even some of the key economic ministries they held on to. And now they've folded up public enterprises into the office of the presidency. This is becoming an imperial presidency where Cyril Ramaphosa has the intelligence services under his direction. He has public enterprises under his direction. So we're talking about South African Airways, Eskom, all that stuff falls directly under him now and not a minister. I don't think much is going to change. No. We might see some corruption exposed, but it's not going to be much more than that, I think.
But the exposure of any corruption will only be in the few departments or ministries that the DA and the Freedom Front and some other parties are controlling. But in the end, I also think that nothing is going to change because they added the guys from the DA and the other parties, but then they extend the cabinet
Yeah, it's
by
bigger.
another how many ministers?
Two more ministers, but many, many, many more deputy ministers.
Yeah, which in effect means that something comes down to a vote. They still got the majority.
Yep. Yep.
And I've said a long time ago, we are past the time where we are going to solve problems with elections, politics, petitions, or whatever else we are doing, and we are trying doing in the civil way. In the end, the results are going to be the same because all the sources of plundering is still in the hands of the ANC. They are still not looking at the expectations of the masses. They are still being ignored, and the elites are carrying on and, of course, put more money in the banks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just got to take something here in the chat really quick after you're sharing that. Lactose Tolerant is the username. Lactose Tolerant says, Chris, willst du mich heiraten? Well, I'm sorry, but Lactose Tolerant, there's a challenge with that. You're asking if I want to marry you. I don't know who you are. I don't even know if you're a man or a woman or transsexual. So it's kind of hard for me to say if I want to marry you at this point. But
Yeah, be careful.
Exactly. People always trying to marry me off there. Look, in Africa, people are always trying to marry me off. Other things in Africa, people are always trying to feed me goat. I don't eat goat. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. And I don't eat sheep. Sorry, no lamb for me. I know in the Northern Cape and the Karoo, that's sacrilege, not eating lamb, but that's not my cup of tea. So yeah, I think you're spot on with that. Hey, let's shift gears. We can come back and talk about the election a little bit later on, but I want to talk about your thoughts as not an American. Obviously, I have a very a biased position as an American about what happened on Saturday with President Trump, the attempted assassination attempt. And I said it right at the time when it happened. I said, but for the grace of God and the mere happenstance that Trump turned his head from this direction, looking at the crowd, to the side of the crowd, he'd be dead right now. Because his head was turned this way, the bullet would have gone right straight through the center of his head instead of taking the tip of his ear off. I mean, by the grace of God, the world averted a catastrophe of epic proportions. That's my take on it. Let me get your thoughts as a South African. What do you think? And where did you first hear about it? I mean, many events like this, when Kennedy was assassinated, when the moon landing happened, when the Challenger blew up in 1986, 9/11, we always remember exactly what we're doing, where we're at. Will this be a moment for you that you remember what happened when they tried to take Trump out? And let me get your thoughts on that as a South African about the attempt to assassinate Donald John Trump.
Chris, I will start off and just say that I have warned the people about more than a year ago. I've said that we must connect Trump with the ending of the wars, and they can't afford the wars to end. And I'm talking of they. We can come back later to they. It's not specifically the Biden government. The Biden government are solely puppets on that scenario. There's some a much bigger force behind this world effort. And I said that, well, they will take Trump out in the one or other way. And I listened to Larry Johnson one evening, and he said, well, they can't shoot Donald Trump anymore because there's too many social media sources. Every cell phone is a social media source. So they assassinate a person's his character. So we got character assassination. But it didn't work. All the court cases against Trump didn't work. Every time Trump came out stronger in the polls, better figures. And I think that at a stage they realized, well, Donald Trump will prevail and he will become the next president. I was in Bloemfontein And on Sunday morning, our time, about 2 o'clock, I hear a message that started coming through. And I had a quick look at my phone and see it's all from the United States. Family that is there, other South Africans who is there, and they immediately say Trump has been shot, but he survived. So I got up, and I reckon that must be about between half an hour and an hour after the event physically happened. I'm not sure exactly about the time difference, but I heard fairly early on Sunday morning. I wasn't able to do anything or say anything about it because I had to leave very early that morning. We came back from Bloemfontein to Uppington. But that's when I heard about it. And I watched what the people were saying last night on YouTube, on various other channels, on Twitter, etc. And some of the stuff that came through say, but it is a set up and it's just to get more sympathy for Trump. I say, well, get me any guy willing to go and stand on that stage where a sniper, the best one in the world, is going to take out your ear while you are moving your head. So that's not a possibility even to consider. Worrying at this stage is the failure of the Secret Service, failures that is coming through more and more. There's a one that I saw just 20 minutes ago where the Secret Service and one of their agents was clearing some of the people at the back of the stage just before the shots rang out. Why did he do that? Why did he clear out certain people? To prevent them from being hit by a bullet that he knows is coming? I don't know. The fact that the what does you call it, the team leader refused to give permission to shoot the intruder by the sharpshooter or that raises a lot of questions. I mean, that guy made a statement this morning. He said, well, I had this perpetrator in my sights for 3 minutes and they did not give me permission to shoot. But when the shots rang out, I fired anyway. And apparently he got fired today because of that statement that he made, that permission to fire was withheld. Now, we are sitting with a big problem, not only in the United States, but worldwide. Donald Trump is the hope for all conservatives right across the world. Viktor Orban said the other day, the only person that can bring peace in Ukraine is Trump. Trump must come back. For us, there's implications in this world issues. Trump is going to stop this wokeness of the current American government. Trump is the guy that will bring back stability to the United States and provide the proper leadership to the rest of the world. If he dies, something happens to him, then the whole world is in for a big problem. My thoughts is, what else are the forces behind everything planning on doing with Donald Trump? You still got a plane that is flying every day. You have to drive in a convoy every day. There's still means to take him out. Maybe not try another shooting incident, but they did it. What is worrying, however, and which we don't hear on normal South African mainstream media, is the rhetoric that the Democrats have uttered in the past couple of weeks. They must take Trump out. He's the greatest threat to democracy. He's the greatest threat to America. and they must stop him at all costs. And even Joe Biden himself said it's time to put Trump in the crosshairs. Now, if you say things like that, there will be stupid people who think, well, I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to save America from Donald Trump, and try to shoot him. The other question is, this guy got off a couple of shots, but not as many as we heard. It's about 50% because the mic caught up when the bullet passed the mic in the ear, it makes a crack sound, a large crack sound, which the microphone picks up. And then it picks up the shot that was actually coming from the combustion when the guy pulled the trigger. So you can halve the number of shots you've heard by, as we say in Afrikaans, the knal en dem, the crack and explosion, whatever it is in English. But the point is, immediately, the sniper or the perpetrator was killed. Now, he was allowed to shoot while he was in the sights of the sniper. He was not allowed to shoot. He was there for 3 minutes. After the shots was fired, this guy fired. Now there's two things. If we go back to the killing of J.F. Kennedy, Lee Harvey Oswald was the guy they grabbed and say, this is the killer. This was the shooter. And then Jack Ruby came past and killed the shooter. So Jack Ruby was prosecuted for the fact that he killed Lee Harvey Oswald. So nobody knows the true story because he never got the opportunity to tell his side of the story. Now, there's very much similarities for me, looking from the outside in, is the fact that this guy was killed. I must say, if I was the shooter of the sniper, I would have done exactly the same. The point is, he's gone. You can't put his side of the story and what motivated him. Another thing that's not reflecting well is the fact that this guy's social media platforms have been taken down. There's not one that survived. So nobody can go and look at the platforms to see what was his agenda. Did he put out a statement about it? Nothing. And we don't know whether this is ever going to reach the ear of the public. But as a leader of the West, it's not only the United States who got the right to know the truth. Every hopeful person in the rest of the world valuing conservative values wants to hear the truth. Because we, of course, wants to know that the leader of the free world is an honest person, that his government is honest, that is open, that they are reliable, that we can trust them, take them by the word. And now, at present, we know the Department of Justice weaponization. We know that they are not impartial. We know you cannot trust them. And it's a big problem, I think, for the rest of the world. Me now speaking according to the rest of the world, Chris.
Well, that's an interesting point you make on a number of different levels. So I watched this not quite in real time, but almost in real time, and gave an analysis of this within a few hours. There are some striking things about it, as you point out, and let me just recap a few of those from my perspective, and thank you for your perspective. You made a point about people overcounting shots, and that's something that happened at the time when the shooting happened. Somebody said something. I said, you have to understand that sound doesn't travel at the same speed as light. It's much slower. And so you're going to hear that twice. You're going to hear, if it picks up, you'll hear the explosion. When the percussion cap is hit, there's a sound. And then you're going to hear it because the microphones are picking up sound across a range of space. You're going to hear it when it whizzes by. That's going to be the second one. So, and also you have like idiots like that young Turk moron in California who ran for office and lost badly, saying that, well, it sounded like a BB gun to me. Oh, thank you for your expertise. So glad that you're involved in this. Look, from my perspective, Vinant, I had some real issues here from the outset, and I still do, with the Secret Service's conduct here. Number one, I watched the tape, and I'll stand for correction if a forensics analyst can tell me I'm wrong, but I watched the tape, and I did it frame by frame, and it's 3.8 to over 4 seconds before the first Secret Service agent reaches the president. That is unacceptable. Unacceptable. I don't care where the president is at. That is not acceptable. Reagan was shot by John Hinckley in less than a second and a half. An agent took a bullet for Reagan because he jumped in the body. That cannot happen. And now we're seeing all kinds of stuff. I don't know what the facts are. We don't know the facts. This will not be a transparent investigation. I mean, how can we trust the Federal Bureau of Incompetence, the same organization that fraudulently, illegally obtained Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrants to surveil Carter Page and Mike Flynn, violating the law to get their entry into the Trump campaign, to create and craft their fake Steele dossier and their lies about Russia collusion to taint and undermine a presidency for 3 years. And it's the same organization that covered up January 6th, the actual events. They didn't report the truth that happened there, and they colluded with the January 6th Commission. The failures of the FBI are epic. Now, as an organization, they've had great successes over the years, breaking up the mobs. That's one of the reasons why they were formed back in the 1930s, Elliot Ness, those days. But this is an organization that is hardly trustworthy, and I don't think can be trusted to give us an honest assessment. The actions of the Secret Service are, at very best, negligent, at worst, malfeasant and complicit in what happened. I can't make the claim that they are malfeasant and complicit, but I can state unequivocally they are negligence of the highest order, and the director of the Secret Service should have tendered a resignation, and she should be fired and brought up on charges for negligence. Now, let me be clear about that. I have actually been on the ground and been part of operations with the Secret Service. I know how they work. I know what's supposed to be done. And let me tell you, this nonsense in the press we're seeing now about, well, the Secret Service is responsible for close-in protection and the stuff further out. No. The Secret Service has overall responsibility for the safety of the president and the principals. Overall responsibility. Everything. They may coordinate and defer with local police, in this case the Pennsylvania State Police, and or local authorities for things further out in the rings of responsibility. But how in the world do you get someone on a roof 130 meters from the President of the United States with a clear line of sight? There should have been snipers on that roof. By the way, I got to clarify something for folks because they're misusing the term. Afrikaans is your mother tongue, so you said it too, but this person was not a sniper. A sniper is a trained professional. This person was a gunman. That's the term we should use here. I don't want the media to mislead. So,
I meant the guys from the Secret Service.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood then. Okay, yeah. I was going to say.
The other guy I called the perpetrator.
The perpetrator. There you go. That's a perfect. He's a gunman or perpetrator. Yeah. Perpetrator is a better term, I think, or would-be assassin. We could use the phrase would-be assassin. But the press are running around calling him a sniper. He's not a sniper. No. And frankly, the sniper that was on the roof, I question whether that guy's a sniper. Because you and I both know snipers are trained. They have muscle memory. When a round is fired, they don't flinch and fall back off the roof and their rifle rise up in the air. What the hell's going on there? That's very suspicious. A real sniper is trained the moment their spotter and or the sniper gets the distance, and there was no need to adjust for windage. It's 125 meters away on a sunny day in broad daylight. This is suspicious beyond belief. But the conduct of that so-called sniper or counter sniper, that was questionable. And then this whole thing is somebody getting a roof. And then when my audience came on, I had not seen the interview on BBC at this stage. When my audience came on and said, hey, listen, there's someone on BBC saying that they saw the whole thing. I'm like, okay, I'm suspicious. But then I played the video and listened to it. The dude explained everything for 2 or 3 minutes, and now I've subsequently seen other people's video that shows them pointing the guy out on the roof before a shot is fired. 30 seconds before a shot is fired. And they're warning, and it's look, there's I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but this one is going to be open to conspiracy theories forever. I mean, you could run the conspiracy theory that this was an intentional effort by some organization or some establishment to take him out. But one thing's for sure, they failed. Through the providence of God or windage, whichever it was, President Donald John Trump has survived. And I don't care where you sit in the political spectrum, Vaynant. I know where you and I sit, but I don't care where you sit. If you watch that video and then you see Trump wounded, blood all over his face, stand up, and they're trying to hustle. No, wait. Fight. That is with the American flag fluttering in the wind behind, with a man bloodied and unbowed. That is the iconic image. We thought it was George Bush standing on a rubble pile in New York City after 9/11. This will be one of the most iconic images of the 21st century.
I agree with you 100%. It reminds you of the it's a difficult word, but the Marines, when they raised the flag on Iwo
Jima. Yep.
Hiroshima, yeah. That was always a iconic symbol of the United States power. But this one, I agree with you, is going to stick. This is going to be the outstanding moment where he still thinks. He told the one Secret Service agent, pick up my shoe. I need my shoe.
Exactly.
Yeah. And apparently someone also rescued his mega hat, which will of course now be worth millions. The one that he had on there. But yeah, to me it was great. I mean, the hairs on your arms raise when you see that. And you stand there proud. As one commentator mentioned, he's there in a moment of just being attacked, almost dead, and he still thinks of the people.
Exactly.
So his first thing that he posted out on his channel, on Truth Social, was, I'm okay. And my heart goes out to the families of the person that died.
Yep.
And those injured. That's a leader.
Yep.
When you think of those injured first, above your own safety, then you are a leader. And he did not try to hide behind the Secret Service, which was supposed to keep his head down anyway, but he still raises his fist in the air. I agree with you, Chris. That is going to be one of the iconic photos ever.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and and here's the thing, and you've touched on it, and I've touched the previous comments and broadcast. This is a leader. This is a man, and so what's so disgraceful by the media is an effort to portray this like Biden, because Biden falls all the time. So CNN's immediate headline is Trump falls down at rally. Then they're like MAGA people upset that Trump is injured in a fall. I mean, this is sickening and twisted. This is what happened. Let me just replay it, without the video for people. Donald Trump is speaking. He turns his head to the side. A shot rings out. He reaches up. He touches his ear. He sees the blood. Another shot rings out. Trump looks. He seeks cover. That's what soldiers do. That's what you do. You seek cover. He went to the ground, went straight to the ground. Then when the Secret Service got off of him, he gets up, and his first thought is to let the people know, I'm okay. Fight. And then when he has a subsequent chance to communicate, he does so as a leader. Think about this in a moment. I mean, how many people other than you and I, there's some in the chat, have been shot at? How many people here have had artillery explode around them and fragments whiz by their ear? How many people have had fragments land in their body armor? Not many people here. How you react in those moments, and that's how Trump reacted in that moment. That is a true leader. Whatever you think of Donald Trump, whatever you thought of Donald Trump before this, you must recognize, if you're an honest human being, that this is a man that under fire is calm, resolute, and in control of his emotions and his actions. This should be played over and over again. And whatever Trump's policies are on abortion, or his policies on taxes, his policies on foreign policy, don't matter. What we have lacked in the White House since Reagan is a true leader, with the exception of when Trump was there before. But Trump was undermined every single day he was in office, and he was fighting battles that were a waste of energy and time. We need a true leader without treasonous behavior in Congress, and hopefully we'll get it in November.
Well, somebody said today, if nothing happens to Trump, he is the new president.
He is. It's over. He won the election.
Yeah. And if we don't, then we must know there has been a lot of cooking going on. But what was the point I wanted to make?
About the race being over, about him being a great leader?
Yeah, it's about him being elected. Actually, yesterday with the shooting, he was elected as the new president.
Yep, agreed.
The way he stood up and the way he portrayed and behaved himself. And you said a very true thing now. Talk is cheap. But to stand there while somebody is firing at you, and when you duck for the bullet, to then say you have fallen down is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's the normal thing that one will do. Here in South Africa, we are sitting in the... here it comes.
Here comes your coffee. Hello.
Dankie, dear.
Boy, she's growing up.
Yeah, the kids are growing up. MJ is longer than I am at this stage. Only 16 years old. But very wise, Very wise for their size, They know better than we do and everything, but it's fine. You will learn over time. There's a lot of people who always say, we are going to fight. Be careful. When the bullet comes from the front and you hear what Trump has heard, and that is not the sound of the rifle firing, that's the sound of the subsonic bullet passing your head. And you will hear it. A sharp crack. And most people, when that happened the first time, go down and never got up until the fight was over.
Yeah.
The second, third time they came into contact with enemy fire, they will behave differently. So, yeah, I agree with you absolutely on that one. But I'm afraid that this was not the last attempt.
It's not over. It's not over. Nope, I'm afraid as well.
It's not over.
Yeah, and here's the even more frightening prospect, Wynand. Again, I'm not going conspiracy theories, but let's play conspiracy theorists for just a moment, okay? And for the content thieves who will steal this content and then edit it like you did with Ronaldo's video, go ahead. You have your fun day, because the true story will be recorded here. I've got the actual digits, and we can prove it if you want to play claims. But we're playing conspiracy theorists. This is not our position. This is not an allegation or claim on our part. We're just playing this out. So if, in fact, the Secret Service was involved in this or allowed it to happen, which is not beyond the realm of possibility, if they did, these are the people responsible for guarding the president. Good Lord. Think about that. If that's, I mean, look, I at this point, if I was Trump, I'd be hiring G4S, or look, somebody ought to call Eben Barlow and get some help for this guy. You know what I'm saying? Because clearly the security around this, when you have a shooter in broad daylight on a white roof crawling around with a rifle and people are screaming at the cops for almost 3 minutes, hey, there's a gunman up there. There's a gunman up there. There's someone with a rifle for 3 minutes. And then this shot rings out from 125, 130 meters away and takes the tip of the president's ear off. We've got a problem. Houston, we've got a serious problem here. And I am very concerned about the detail that's protecting the president. I don't want to hear this nonsense. They're loyal. That's nonsense. I saw the actions of the Secret Service. They were wanting. I'm talking about that sniper on the roof who recoiled when a shot was fired. That's not what happens with a sniper. He takes the bullet or he pulls the trigger. He doesn't fall back when he hears a sound. That's cowardice. So then the action of the agents took so long to get there, then the others taking it up there. And then the actions, look, and go ahead, call me a misogynist. I'm not. But the actions of these female agents who couldn't even holster a firearm, standing around in front of the vehicle like totally frightened and scared like rabbits, that's not what happened when Reagan took a bullet. The Secret Service got him in the vehicle and they were gone.
You know what? The state troopers, they jump onto the stage, on the stage in front, look to me more in place and more ready to act than, in fact, the Secret Service.
Yep, I agree 100%. 100%. Yeah, the Pennsylvania State Police, I think, did a far better job.
Except because if they have really gave Trump the low grades of the class of 23, juniors,
Yeah.
not the best, and he should have the best.
Yep.
And that was the argument today because he is a candidate. Hopefully, they will upgrade now and realize they will have to be serious with this, and they should give Robert Kennedy Jr. protection as well.
No, absolutely. I've called that out. This is unconscionable, immoral that Kennedy doesn't have a detail protecting him. He's a candidate President John Anderson had when he ran, and also so did what's his name there, the third party candidate when Clinton and Bush ran in '92. Little guy. It's economy. Can't think of his name right now, but anyway. So he also had protection. This is uncalled for, unheard of. This sort of thing's happening now. As far as the quality of the team, listen, Vanna, when I was in Liberia and Bush had a 7-country tour of Africa, which is an immense undertaking. You had an advanced team that comes, then you have the main body with the president and the principals, and then you have the trail team that cleans up and sorts everything out after the president leaves. You can imagine spread over 7 countries, that is a huge undertaking. So when the advanced team came to Liberia, I was dealing with the third string. These were Cheney's people, the vice president, who wasn't on a trip, but they sent some of them because they just didn't have enough Secret Service experienced guys. And they were better than these clowns. And so this whole thing, every building within rifle shot of where the president was going to be and speak was checked the day prior. It was checked 2 hours prior. People walked through it 90 minutes prior. People walked through it 30 minutes prior. And I can tell you that when Bush got out of the limousine and came over and shook my hand after I rendered a salute to him, there was a Secret Service agent that could have grabbed my arm. That's how close they were to him in Liberia, and we weren't in line of sight of anything. This is beyond the D team, and I agree with you. The Pennsylvania State Police were the ones who were off stage. They rushed up on there. Their behavior was much better. It's just the whole thing is preposterous, and I'm very concerned about the safety of Donald Trump going forward.
Yeah, another thing that came to light today that I read about is the fact that this is the same Secret Service that hide the cocaine using of Biden's son,
Hunter Biden,
in the White House.
Yep, in the White House. Yep.
They should have been opened because they are servants of the public.
Oh, by the way, also they found explosives in the car or something like that, or no, it was stolen, of the president's daughter. The president's daughter's car was carjacked, and this is Secret Service protecting her. These people are not competent. I don't know if this is true, and this is something that deeply concerns me, is that Jason Chaffetz, a former member of Congress, a Republican who was in Congress back when Obama was still president, had written a scathing report from a congressional investigation about how little training the Secret Service are getting. They said the average agent's getting 30 minutes of training annually. 30 minutes. So you and I both know you go to the range, you're spending 4 to 6 hours on a day at the range just doing your weapons. These are people that should be getting training weekly and doing drills and exercises every week. And you should have a red, amber, and green cycle where you're on duty protecting the principal, you're off duty preparing, and then you're resting, and you rotate through that sequence. If there's any truth to the story that they're getting 30 minutes of training, that's ridiculous. Basic training recruits in the Army get weeks of training to fire a rifle. And these people are getting 30 minutes of training. That one, I just can't believe that's true. But based on their actions, I can certainly believe that somebody is real focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and not on competence.
But because there's no money to train, all the money is going to Ukraine.
Well, there's probably a lot of truth in that.
Saturday they approved another how many billion to go to Ukraine?
Yeah. Well, we're over $200 billion given to Ukraine already. By contrast, ladies and gentlemen, the United States government spends on the continent of Africa in foreign assistance, including HIV, economic assistance, infrastructure development, democratic principles, all that stuff. The United States government spends less than $10 billion per year across the 54 countries in Africa with 1.4 billion people. But Ukraine, with 41 million people, because 2 million cowards have fled to Germany, with 41 million people, has gotten over 200 billion, 20 times as much money as, well, if we break it down because it's been 2 years, it's 10 times as much per year. 10 times as much money as all of Africa. It's 1.4 billion people. Why is Joe Biden still pouring money into Ukraine for his proxy war? Well, I think we know why. It has something to do with Burisma.
But I must say, Chris, that is why Africa is abandoning the United States now. If Trump was another 4 years in the presidency, and not voted out in 2020, the United States would still have been prominent in all the African states. And everywhere they were, in the Sahel states where they have been asked to leave now, the diplomacy currently of the United States is one of threatening people, threatening governments. If you don't do this, we will do this, or we will withhold this. So the aid is being used, and Biden was the first guy who did it in Ukraine. If you don't do that, then you don't get the money. America, over the past 3.5 years, has become a bully in the world, unfortunately. And that has changed the face of the world. 3 years, 4 years don't sound like a lot of time, but it's enough time to turn the world against you. And that's what happened under Biden. Because he don't even know what he have decided this morning and what he's going to say tonight. He fell asleep halfway through whatever he is doing. And he is the most powerful man in the world. Now, and that's something that I think that people in the United States must realize. You know, there's a lot of very strong people in the United States. But if you have a bad government, a weak government, you will reap the harvest of that. And now if Trump came back and he put in strong government, strong leadership, I don't think he can rebuild what the U.S. has lost over the past 4 years. I don't think he can rebuild that trust in 4 years. And I think that's a big problem. And yeah. But Chris, say for example, they did kill Trump. What did you think would happen? Civil war?
If you're asking me if there'd be civil war, I think there'd certainly be unrest. But there is something that I think I should point out here, Venant, and that is a pretty obvious one. And I mentioned that I think in the interview with Biz News. The striking thing about the day after is, unlike the George Floyd lie of what happened there and the incarceration of a former police officer for a legal and authorized chokehold that was applied because the man was belligerent and threatened the safety, public safety, and police officers because he was under the influence of fentanyl, and then that was the cause of his death. But unlike that lie, which led to the torching of police stations, the murder of American citizens across our major metropolitan areas, there are no American cities being burned by conservatives today. There are no law enforcement officials' lives being threatened. There are no parades and marches about, conservative lives matter, white lives matter, anything like that. What we see today is restraint by centrist and people on the right because, by and large, these are people that engage their brain and not their emotional cortex when it comes to things like this. So I think that's important, but I don't think we would have seen civil war. But had Trump been killed, I think we would have seen people in the streets. Definitely would have seen people in the streets, and there'd be a lot of chaos going on right now. But as I said, in private conversations while I was in South Africa last month, I was repeatedly asked this question, and I did state it publicly one time at Rondebosch at the Reformation Society. I said, listen, they've done everything to Donald Trump in the past 6 years except attempt to assassinate him. And now they've done that. They've tried to assassinate him. And, that song by DJ Khaled, all I ever do is win, 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 no matter what. That is Trump, man. This guy is a Teflon Don, and thank goodness. But, yeah, I don't think we would have seen a civil war, and I don't think we're going to see a civil war, knowing Americans. But here's the thing. We have had insurrections in the past, real insurrections. Of course, we had the one in 2020, which was ignored by the federal government, including Trump, and ignored by state authorities around the country, which allowed people to loot and burn our cities to the tune of billions of dollars, the death of dozens of Americans. And we've also had, in the past, we had Shays' Rebellion in Massachusetts, in which they rebelled against the government and they had to put them down. We had the Whiskey Rebellion right here in Pennsylvania, the only time the President of the United States has ever led the army.
Support that one.
Oh, the Whiskey Rebellion. Well, what happened was the federal government, which didn't have the power of taxation for income, put like an excise tax on whiskey. And there were many whiskey distillers here in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, and that was the frontier at the time. So George Washington got on his horse as president, rode horseback to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where I taught at the Army War College. He assembled there and then gathered the army, which went out and squashed the Whiskey Rebellion. Because we've had actual insurrections. We, of course, had an effort for the country to split over the issue of slavery and states' rights in the Civil War. I don't think we're going to come to something like that, but here's something that people should be cognizant of. 480 million firearms, 330 million people. This is a well-armed society, and many Americans are well-informed. They're not subject to the lunacy that comes across MSNBC, CBS, ABC, the legacy media, print media, and they also aren't wackadoodles on the far left or the far right. They're clear-thinking Americans who know their rights and understand their role in society. And I caution anyone who continues to try to hijack our country, which is what's been going on for 40 years. A day of reckoning is coming, and I'm not talking about violence. A day of political reckoning is coming, and you, slime, will be tossed into the streets. And back in the day, they would tar and feather people who misbehave in governance. I'm not saying you're going to be tarred and feathered, but you might want to find some way to remove tar from your skin.
Yeah, but maybe that's something to go back to, to keep it in mind to do it.
So I just got to digress for a second here, Venat, because Dave Rennicke's here. Dave, this is Venat Tutoy, a veteran of the South African Defense Force, a man who was held prisoner of war in Angola, part of the special operations effort. And I think it was Shell Terminal that you guys went after there, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day. Texaco. Yeah. The Texaco terminal operations in the Cabinda Enclave. Unfortunately, the operation did not go as smoothly as it was planned, and he wound up being a prisoner of war. A published author, an accomplished farmer, statesman, soldier. This is my colleague, Venat Tutoy, whose name I used to always say Wynant, and people always tell me that was incorrect because I was giving the German pronunciation, so I've tried to soften it with the Afrikaans, the Wynant. Hopefully I'm doing better now. Yep. Okay, well, I am doing better. All right, so this is our segment called Fireside with the Colonels, and this grew out of my first trip back to South Africa in 2022 after the COVID scam was eased, when I went to Uppington and met with the Soutlanders organization, for which he was responsible for the civil defense part. That group is now split into two. And I went there, and with a panel of colonels, and this is an apropos time to bring this topic up, I think, Venat. At that panel, we all spoke. I was the sole American, and with veterans of the Bush War who were there. But we had a master of ceremonies. With Barry's was our master of ceremonies. And subsequently, after that, when I was back in Bloemfontein, he came to my meet and greet. Unfortunately, sadly, our colleague, our comrade, has passed away recently. Could you briefly tell people what's recently happened? And if you could just tell people a little bit about the life of Barry's, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, Barry's was a great guy, interesting guy, very loyal, very concerned about other people's problems, always there to help. He, of course, grew up in the Armor Corps and became a sergeant major. And then he did some courses and he became a major. When he retired, he opened up a clothes factory in Bloemfontein, where he manufactured clothes. Very much involved with all the veteran associations, veteran courses, Club Omathea. He was part of the Memorial Order of the Tin Hats, and numerous different organizations, veteran organizations, and everywhere he made his mark. And he suffered because of oxygen problems. He was taken to the hospital, transferred to another private hospital, and then the worst that has happened. He was about a week ago, his funeral was held. I went through this weekend, the past weekend, to the memorial service, which was held at the Women's Memorial in Bloemfontein, where actually a monument for the women and the children in the concentration camps.
Yeah, those who passed away in the
during
concentration camps. That's that memorial, correct?
Yeah, yeah. And it was a great memorial service. A very large crowd gathered there, and everybody paid their respects. I also said a couple of words as how I remembered him, encouraged the people about the fact that eventually all of us will be gone. So it's now time to respect each other, give each other room, talk to each other. It's not now the time to point fingers, to blame. It's time to relax, because we are always at the memorial say nice things of a person. But do we say it to each other when we are alive? And I think that's sort of the message that went out on Saturday. Yeah, and then of course on Sunday morning, 2:00, the guys in the United States start sending me messages and video footages and stuff, and it turned my weekend upside down. I was somehow expecting a thing like this, but even if you expect that there will be an effort to do it, an assassination effort, when it comes, it's still a shock.
Well, I agree 100%. Thank you for sharing those thoughts about Barry's. I only knew him briefly, but I was really impressed by the gentleman. I loved his zest for life and his sense of humor. He was a bubbly personality. I can only imagine what he was like as a sergeant major. I suspect as a young troopie, I probably wouldn't have wanted him to be my sergeant major, because he might be a little bit hard on me if I was a troopie. But no, thank you for sharing that. And let me just say, you're right. As I mentioned, you and I spoke just before we went live. Sadly, his passing, we all come into this world. At some point, we leave this world, and hopefully we leave it at a very advanced age when we've accomplished a lot and we've left something behind that makes the world better. But it is, I think, incumbent upon us to recognize our comrades, our colleagues, our family, people around us, and say nice things about them that are appropriate when the time is there. So I say right here unequivocally, Vina Tutoy, that you're a gentleman, you're a scholar, you are a good mensch, a good human being, and it's a privilege to know you.
Thanks, Chris. Of course, you are the only American officer that I know, but I can very much say exactly the same of you. I've always appreciated your openness and the way how you fit in, and the way how you know so much about my people and my culture and the people of South Africa. I've many times said to people that you know probably more about South Africa than most of the average people in South Africa. So yeah, Chris, thanks to be a friend.
Well, you're very welcome.
I appreciate it.
No, listen, imagine if only I could praat Afrikaans well, then maybe I'm married to a Boeremeisie. I really would understand. I would really understand. I did all this. I learned all about that without speaking Afrikaans properly and without being married to a Boeremeisie.
But you joined the Afrikaans conversation the other night on YouTube. My Bosberaad so-called thing, but it's very much similar than what we call this fireside with the colonels. Yeah. And the very first one that we had live here in Uppington Barries was the Master of Ceremonies. A lot of good memories coming out of that. And then the one, of course, that we held in Pretoria the other time. But I need a little bit of pre-warning, because the guys in the Cape want us to organize something there as well. But somehow I did not have enough warning. Excuse. And the fact is just next time when they come down to South Africa, warn me, give me ample warning in time so that we can organize some stuff.
Yeah, that was entirely on me, Vina. And the reason why that happened is that I made a commitment to cover South Africa's elections. But of course, I ran for office, and my campaign started in January. and the primary date was April 23rd. So it wasn't until April 23rd that I knew how much time I would have and whether I was coming to South Africa or not. It was after that I had some challenges about whether to be able to do this or not. There's some financial, because contrary to what the eucalyptus leaves sucking clowns down under and other trolls like to claim, I self-finance. I don't make money off of my news reporting. I make a small amount of money, and it usually doesn't even cover my internet costs, which is about 3,000 Rand a month because I have a high connection. So this is self-financing, and I had to make sure I could pay my bills, because I also, when I ran for office, people want to donate money, but there were 5 candidates in the race. And so I said, listen, hold your powder, keep it dry. We don't know who's going to win the primary. If I win the primary, then I'll start a political action committee, and you can donate money so that we win in the fall against the Democrats. So please save your money now. That way you might want to use it for, if I don't win, you can give it to someone else. So unlike the other candidates, I spent all my own money, and I spent life savings for this, and then also ran up 2 credit card bills. So I had to make sure I had the resources to pay off those credit card bills before I could even book a flight. And so I wasn't sure I was coming till late. If people are curious, it's a matter of public record, but I'll share it here right now. So I spent, almost 400,000 Rand on my election campaign out of my pocket. I'm not a wealthy man. I drained savings accounts and paid credit card bills. So that was one reason why there wasn't much advance warning. I wasn't sure I was coming until just a few days before. And the other problem, the real stumbling block, that's all true. And I would have come anyway. I would have found a way. I would have slept on the street, slept rough, whatever it took. But the real impediment to this is that the State Department, I had submitted my passport, and they sat on it for 7 weeks. I didn't get my passport until I made a phone call the week prior to South Africa's election, around the 22nd or the 21st, 22nd. I called the State Department and said, where is my passport? You've had it for 7 weeks. And they said, well, we can't guarantee anything. We will expedite it to you for a fee, of course. And so $60 to expedite it, plus another $20 for the express mail. And so on Wednesday morning, less than 2 days later, it was on my front stoop. I walked out, and there's an envelope from the United Parcel Service. I opened up, and there's my passport, which took almost 2 months to get to me. I couldn't travel because my other one had less than 6 months left on it after 10 years. So that's why there was short notice. As you know, I'm a soldier. We plan things out. It doesn't always go to plan, but there will be more notification. And I think the Western Cape, if you're able to set something up, is a good place to do it. We've done it in Gauteng. We did it in Pretoria East. We've done it in Northern Cape. I think it's time to do it in the Western Cape, and there's a lot of people there who'd want to come to it. So you'll get plenty of warning next time. The question now is, I've got to find money. my flight was so expensive this time. The price of my flight was 300% of the first one.
The cost of a flight between Joburg and Uppington has more than doubled since you have last fly that same.
I saw that because I was trying to see if I could make it to Uppington to see you, and I knew I was going to have to eat that. But as it turns out, for me, it wouldn't have mattered either way. My bills would have been about the same because I'm a rugby enthusiast and I cover rugby. So I was at the quarterfinal with credentials for the Bulls at Loftus. Then I was at the semifinal, and they won. They beat Leinster. It was fantastic. But we all expected that the final would be in Europe because Munster was supposed to beat Glasgow. And then Glasgow beat Munster. So since the Bulls were second on the log, that meant that the final was at Loftus. Well, my plans were already in place to spend my last 5 days in the Western Cape. And now I had to fly back to the Western Cape on a Wednesday evening because I had a Thursday morning breakfast with a famous journalist in South Africa. And then I had a Thursday evening presentation at Rondebosch with the Reformation Society. So then on Saturday, I had to fly back up to Gauteng, so I had to buy another plane ticket there and back, rent a hire to get myself to the stadium, and pay for a hotel room to stay overnight. So I spent the money either way, whether I came to Uppington or not. But yes, you're right. The price is so much higher. But I think that the price, it's not too bad going from Uppington to Cape Town, or is it also expensive?
There is a flight, yes.
Okay.
There is a flight, yeah.
Yeah, so either way, I was spending the money.
But Chris, what happened with the elections there when you were standing as a candidate, the primaries?
Okay, so 5 candidates. So here's what happened, and this isn't sour grapes because I'm not upset. In fact, doing a job in the state legislature is not my ultimate goal. I would prefer to sit in U.S. Congress. And the time to run is when there's no incumbent. Well, there was an incumbent. So the incumbent stepped aside. So this was the time to run for the state legislature, but there was an incumbent for Congress. So if the state legislature, I decided to run, cut my teeth, do the experience, work in the Capitol building just down the road. So 7 people were interviewed by the Republican precinct captains. These are the people that organize the party in each part of the district. Our district has 65,000 people, and we have 47,000 registered voters. Of those, 28,000 are Republicans. So it's 2 Republicans for every Democrat in this county or in this district. So if you win the primary, you're going to win in the fall. So I figured it's a good time to do it. I ran my campaign, and there was a lot of friction going on under the scenes, which I didn't know. So the Republican precinct captains interviewed 7 candidates in January. 2 candidates, because of the strength of their opponents, just withdrew. They said, "No, I'm not going to run in this crowd. It's too crowded, too many people." Well, I stayed in the race. Then I stayed in the race because the Republican captains lied to us. They said that they weren't endorsing any candidate and that was an open race because it was just, we had a good field. We're just going to stay out of it. But they lied. The existing state representative, who is running for a higher office now, worked behind the scenes to promote a candidate who is a high school teacher. And so did the main precinct captains. And so they undermined what was going on. In fact, what happened is I found out that they were having petition signing events to get the signatures on your petition. And so I called the senior person. I said, "Hey, listen, do you know about this event? Do you know anything about this?" She goes, "Yeah, it's going to be this Sunday." I said, "Is there a reason I wasn't invited?" And then there was a pause. An hour and a half later, she came back and said, "Oh, you're welcome to come to it. But this is the last one. It was too late. People had already signed all the events for the previous weeks." But I had been excluded from this, as had another candidate, because they saw me as a threat. They didn't want me to do well. They didn't want me to get on the ballot. But much to their chagrin, I knocked on 3,000 doors. And during the petition signing period, I knocked on enough doors to get signatures to get on the ballot. So that kind of surprised them. But they actively worked behind the scenes with dark money from special interest outside the district who funded an opposition candidate. So also all kinds of underhanded things happened. One of the candidates committed crimes. His campaign had high school students go around to homes to get signatures. Now, in order to get a signature valid on the petition, the person collecting the signature must be a registered voter in the district, in the political party that you're trying to get a signature for, and obviously of age. You can't have high school teenagers who aren't even eligible to vote do that, because every form that you turn in is a legal affidavit. So they committed crimes. And then we had a debate, and it was comical because this clown actually boasted about the number of signatures he got. I had over 500. I just needed 300. So he said, "Well, I had to work all day. I'm a teacher, and, I didn't have time on my hands, and I got 900 signatures." Yeah, most of them illegally. And then during the course of the campaign, I self-funded, purchased my own signs, yard signs. About $1,200 of my yard signs, about 23,000 Rand worth of my signs were stolen. Those are all crimes each time that occurs. Plus, I had 2 teams of people put my signs out on public spaces, because 30 days before an election, you're authorized to put your signs on public spaces at intersections, by robots, things like that. Yeah. And then you have 48 hours to get them down after the election. Anyway, so I had 2 teams go out, and they went out with the existing legislator who's now running for the Senate, a higher seat, and they put her sign and my sign next to each other. All over the county, I could see where those were. And then and another team go out and they put the congressman, Scott Perry, and then the state's legislator who's running for the Senate, and myself, all 3 of us with mine in the middle because my sign was slightly bigger. 10 days before the election, everywhere I drove, because I was going around knocking on doors, meeting people, everywhere I drove throughout the district, I noticed that my sign had been removed and moved down the road or was just completely disappeared. And then my opponent's sign was adjacent to where my sign had been and replaced. So they put their sign where my sign had been. And then 7 days before the election, I noticed it with the other signs as well. And just the really childish things that were happening. We had another debate, one of the last ones late in the campaign season, and I drove down to this town called Dover, which is actually outside the district, but the edge of the town is in the district. We were at a church, and when I came back, I noticed that my sign was missing because someone had put a sign there. Everyone else's signs were up on both sides of the road, but not mine. So I pulled over, and I walked across the street, and I'm looking at my sign, and I found it. Someone had singled out my sign and stomped it to the ground. I have their boot marks. I've retained the sign. Their boot marks on my sign. I mean, this is the sort of nonsense happening for a state position. And then also, one of my opponents did not report his donations properly and circumvent. Look, I had a very sour taste in my mouth after this, and now I understand, Vaynant, why people of character, good people, so seldom run for politics. It is vile and repulsive. The conduct of these people, they're just shameful people. Now, most of my opponents were good, honest people. We had a very devout Christian who came in second in the race. Good man, honorable man, not very experienced, but he would have been a good member in the legislature. Had an opponent who I'm not particularly friendly with, but I also don't have any animosity, who has a lot of experience, but a decent person. And then a young guy at 22 who was very above board, and I got to know him very well. But this one guy is just a scoundrel, and that's who won the race, and this is why politics is so corrupt. It's just unfortunate. So when it was over, you don't make decisions when you're emotional or when you're, when something happens. So when it was over, I said, I'm resigning as the commander of the Veterans Organization. I'm resigning as a judge of elections, and I'm never voting again in my life. Now, of course, none of that's true. That was just, I said that to myself. I was so angry. But it's the reason why it's hard to get people like Trump to run for office, who are good people, because the dirty tricks. So when the election was over, in the newspaper, we have a local newspaper that runs once a week. In the newspaper after the election, I put out, because the election was on Tuesday, the paper comes out on Thursday, I made an ad. It's a picture of me standing in front of the castle in Cape Town, by the way, doing a selfie with the castle and the Table Mountain in the background. And I ran the ad, and I thanked all the people who answered the door, the 3,000 houses I knocked on, the people I met and who talked to me and asked me questions, answered. I thanked my volunteers who put a lot of time and effort into it. And I thanked the people who voted for me, which weren't always the same group anyway. And then I said, and I leave this race as I entered it with my integrity and character intact. Now, if I'd been completely honest, which is not good form, I would have finished that sentence, but unlike the guy that won the race.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's why I'm not interested in politics. It's a different game.
It is.
Different ball game altogether. And I always say, if soldiers were to govern countries, you won't have wars. But politicians don't know what is war.
No, they don't. Also, politicians don't get up and wave their fists telling the crowd they're okay, going fight, fight, fight. Yeah. Leaders do. Yeah, that's I tell you, that's going to be iconic. That's going to be played. And it doesn't matter what the left tries to do and the establishment trying to diminish what Trump said and did. They can't diminish it. That's social media's there. We've seen it. Honest people see it. It's gonna. But by the way, so last night on my way back, because I was in Maryland, I linked up with the Conscious Caracal, Ernst von Sale and Ernst Hertz from Solidarity and from AfReform. They're in the States doing some meetings, and so on a Sunday I took them around and took them out to the Chesapeake Bay, went over the massive bridge out there, they could see it. Also took them to the Eastern Shore. We went around to Annapolis, the historic capital of Maryland and one-time capital of the United States. And then also took them up to a military base so they could see what that was like for the experience. But last night I dropped them off and then drove back. It was rather late, and then Biden came on the radio. So I'm listening to Biden. He talked for about 7 minutes. He called for unity, and he tried to equate events unrelated to what this campaign are as if this is all political violence, and trying to really, in my view, diminish what happened to Trump, calling for unity. But this is a man, as you said just a few days ago, called it was time to put a target on Trump's back. And Nancy Pelosi also said it was time to eliminate Donald Trump in the same week. I mean, these people have no credibility. I have no confidence whatsoever that Joe Biden is legitimate in his concern for Donald Trump. And it's sad, but this is the rhetoric that's been going on in this country for so long. And it was just a matter of time, and it may happen again.
Yeah, I'm fairly curious about, I would like to watch it live. And that is Trump's speech at the Republican
convention.
What did you call
it?
Convention is taking place now. When is he speaking? Tomorrow?
No, it'll be the last night. That's what usually happens. It's 3 days, so Wednesday night, I guess it is, but I'll be covering it. If it's Wednesday night, I'll probably be covering it on my radio program because I have the 7 to 9, and he'll be speaking then. But if it's not on the radio, then I'll cover it live on YouTube, and I'll do what I usually do. So you'll be able to find it here if nowhere else. So.
Okay, I will tune in. Chris, what do you think? Running mate for Trump?
Oh, that's a good question, Venant. So, I don't want J.D. Vance. I was in the Army as a resident of Ohio for so many years, voted there for 40 years. I'm not an Ohioan anymore, but I'm not a huge fan of J.D. Vance. I think he's just a little bit out of control populist. I got nothing wrong with populism, but he wrote a book, and it was very famous. And it wasn't the most complimentary book about rural white folks. And I was a rural white folk, so I didn't like it. But I don't think J.D. Vance is the right guy. Also, Byron Donalds from Florida can't do it because the president and vice president apparently can't be from the same state. I don't know if that's actually a law, but people are saying that. Kristi Noem was a top candidate, but her image has been tarnished a bit, so I'm not sure she's the right person. And then you've got Vivek Ramaswamy, who's a good choice, I think, but people aren't sold on him for a number of reasons. So who does that leave? Well, I mean,
he's still very young.
He's very young, yes. That leaves
too young. Yeah,
people aren't talking about DeSantis anymore, but I see no reason why he couldn't elevate DeSantis and come up from Florida. That would be a possible solution there. I don't know who he's going to go with here. We're going to find out in just a matter of hours. It's a short time before we find out who the VP pick is. But I hope it's someone who can add something to the ticket. Historically, vice presidents have brought very little to the ticket. Mike Pence brought nothing to the ticket other than the fact he was a devout Christian. And that's why I went with him, because he brought evangelicals. A lot of evangelicals debating about Trump is, can we trust him? This is a guy who used to be in favor of abortion, and he's had a scandalous life. He's been married multiple times. He's a womanizer, and he's run casinos. Can we, as a people of faith, actually trust Donald Trump? Well, picking Mike Pence had a big role in that. He's a devout Christian, and evangelicals came in part over to the ticket because of that. But most presidential, why did Obama pick Joe Biden unless he wanted a complete idiot to be his vice president? Which is why I think he picked him. But
probably.
Probably.
But I agree with you that the guy from Florida.
That's DeSantis, Ron DeSantis.
DeSantis, yeah. He will be a good guy, because I think now is the time where the Republicans must use the vice president to create continuity.
Yes.
Of policy.
So, and also a successor to Trump in 4 years.
Yes, exactly. And he's probably the perfect guy for that.
No, I think so. I think it's time to mend fences, although I don't think the fences are broken between Trump because when he left the race right after Iowa, DeSantis endorsed Trump right then, which was a smart move politically. I think Ron DeSantis is the right guy. No one's talking about it. That's another reason why I think it's the right pick, but we'll see what will happen. But I don't think J.D. Vance is a good choice there, Dave Ranke. You're saying that you think it's going to be him. I don't think he's a good choice. And here's a question for you. Hendo's asking about the radio station. Is the radio station still there? Do you have it? Is it back up on the air? What's going on with the radio station for Soutlander Civil Defense?
No, it's broadcasting every day from 7 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. And no, it's actually going very great. We got a lot of youngsters in that is broadcasting, and it's bringing a whole new, a younger vibe, a new vibe,
a youthful vibe to it.
Yes.
Okay.
And but I think the people must just be careful how they log in or how they go to the radio station. It is on this Radio ZA, and it's also on Market Radio.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait. Garden Radio.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Here's what you do. Send me the link in WhatsApp when you get a chance, and I'll share it with my viewers because they're asking. Hang on a second, Vandy. Just a second. I got a call here. Hang on. Yeah. No, I'm not at the convention. I'm in Pennsylvania. Oh, you want me to fly to the convention? When? Tonight? No, I don't think I can make it. Oh, vice president? Really? Me? For Trump? No. You're kidding, right? No. I'm getting punked. Who is this? Is this Ashton Kutcher? Am I being punked? Come on. No, I'm honored. Okay, so Trump's plane will be here in Harrisburg at 4 p.m. I'll be ready. I'll see you. Well, we found out who the vice presidential pick is, Vane, and it's me. It's me.
That was great. Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
Tell him about me.
Oh, I will. We'll spend a lot of time talking about farm violence and farmers and such, I guarantee. Oh, that would be if that was a call, that would not have been my reaction. That would have been a very different reaction.
Yeah, I thought by myself, you're taking it too cool there on that
Yeah, it was
side.
way too cool. Yeah.
Who's this Trump guy wanting me to be the vice president?
Oh no, it wasn't the Don. It was his chief of staff.
Okay.
But still, that was a little too calm. Yeah, no, but they did say I had to shave, so I guess I'm like all the presidents in the 19th century had beards. What's the problem?
Yeah,
Anyway,
true.
yikes. Anyway, well, listen. So I think we're probably kind of in agreement. We don't expect to see much change in South Africa over the next few years, but I do think that the decay will slow dramatically because of what's going on. But because the ANC controls the security cluster and the main economic levers, I don't think major changes are in the offing. Do you agree with that?
I agree with you, Chris. I also don't expect anything to change, except maybe the move going to the Shiswe party, the MK party in Natal. We must watch what is going on there, what might jump out. But apart from that, let's see how this is going to play out, because we are sitting now, the two major groupings. The ANC supports Russia, Palestine, the DA, Ukraine, and Israel. And how they are going to sort that out as foreign policy is going to be very difficult and hard to explain. So what we should do now in South Africa is continue our lives, sit back, look and listen. And we must keep an eye on what is happening in Israel, in the Middle East. We have to keep an eye on Eastern Europe, on the Ukraine-Russia situation. Because if the war escalates there to a point where it really becomes a world war, or led to a world war, things in South Africa is going to crash immediately. There's no money available, no whatever else. And then there's an opportunity to do what they are threatening to do. And that is to clean out all the Europeans out of South Africa. So the best thing now to do is be vigilant, be awake, and watch. That's what we can do, and it's the only thing that we can do. I always said, before I watch what is happening in South Africa, I'm keeping a close eye on Ukraine, the Middle East, and the United States elections. That is going to determine our future, not who is governing South Africa.
Well, I think you're spot on there. I think that's a smart way to go. The events in those places play a far bigger role than disputes and squabbling amongst political parties in South Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Listen, hey, it's a small world, Venant. I mentioned this to you when I was in South Africa. I went to Betty's Bay, which I've driven past in the past, but I'd never actually stayed there. I got to tell you, unrelated to what I'm about to show you, but it's the quietest night I've ever spent in Africa. My goodness, you want to talk about a quiet place. The place I stayed, I didn't hear a sound all night. I got incredible rest. It was wonderful. No dogs barking, no noise, no traffic. I've never heard such silence. I thought I was going crazy. But in the morning, a young man came up for me to pay my bill because it hadn't been prepaid. I thought it was, but he came up, and so I paid my bill. And small world, he was wearing a Soutlander's civil defense cap with your horns on there. And I said, you're with Sightline Civil Defense. And he said, no, my dad is. And so it turns out that we knew somebody in common. Small world, Betty's Bay, Sightlander Civil Defense cap I spotted down there in that little town. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is growing, Chris. Our numbers are growing tremendously, and we are grateful for that. And we saw more and more cars on the road with Afrikaner ox on it, and it makes a good feeling, when the guys are buying the usual wear, casual wear clothes and stuff. And it's really developing very quickly. We turned at a stage with a joining rate of around about 45 people per day. It's slightly down now, but still they are joining in. And we are now currently in numbers stronger than we used to be when we were still part of the Soutlanders. And everywhere where I go, people will come to me and talk to me about it, even if they are not members. They know exactly what we are saying. They're following my YouTube broadcast on a daily basis, or at least at some times. So they know what we are standing for, what we are planning and preparing the people for. But hopefully, it will never become a reality. But we are preparing for the worst case scenario. And we honestly don't know when that's going to be. But the escalation in Eastern Europe, the NATO stance and the Russian stance at this stage, it looks to me there's not going to be common ground at this stage, that the escalation is taking place almost on a daily basis. I'm uncertain about the Middle East. The Middle East is more quiet at the moment. But then again, Biden did not have a too good debate with Donald Trump. And all of a sudden it became biggest news in the United States. And now they almost killed Trump. So this now dominates world news. And you actually have to go and search for what is going on in Ukraine and have to go and search what is going on in the Middle East. The attention is getting diverted to new developments that is happening. But I am confident that whatever happens, at least what we are planning, preparing, that we will be in place. And we will be able to take care at least of our people when any emergency, no matter where in the world, causes problems in South Africa, we will be able to manage it.
Well, that's an interesting update. Thank you for that. I was going to get around to the Soutlander Civil Defense and ask you how it's been going and what's going on there. And I think that you've touched on something, Vena, that whether it's intentional or not, is prescient and important for people to realize. Leaders prepare for contingencies. They prepare for what if. It's kind of like a coder. If-then statements. If this happens, then this happens. If this, then this. And that's what you do. And you hope that such things never come to fruition. I mean, one of the reasons I served in uniform supporting defending the Constitution wasn't to go to war. I go to war. You've been to war. That's not fun. I mean, I don't get excited about that. That's the last thing you want. But I did it to deter malfeasant actors, to discourage people from taking those risks and take the chance because you're going to be smacked down hard. In the case of preparing for natural disasters or political chaos and unrest, what you folks are doing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, what you folks are doing is you're planning for the worst case scenarios and things below that. What happens? Because you as leaders have a responsibility to look out for other people to ensure their safety and their survival should, not to be crass, but should the crap hit the pan. I mean, that's really, really what it's all about. And I think a lot of people have a complete misperception of what you're doing. I know what you're doing. I've been there. I've met you guys firsthand. I see what your intent is. And it's a benevolent attempt, a benevolent effort. And I don't think most people realize that. They just assume things because of who's associated with it and their own bigotry. And I think it's important for people to take a few seconds, take a breath, and maybe take a look at what Soutlander self-defense is all about and what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that most people, black, brown, or white, would be like, oh, okay, I get it. Now, these people are just trying to be responsible in case something goes bad. And as you say, God forbid, hopefully nothing ever happens like that. But if you wait and then it happens, hope is not a planning factor. Hope is a fool's errand. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't want to make it applicable to our situation because of wrong terminology can be interpreted wrongly. But there's an old saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. And that joins up with what you have just been saying. You became a soldier to be part of a very strong force, which is the deterrent for bad things that can happen. I don't want to hammer on it. You will remember when they selected Biden as the president, I told you, if I was the enemy, I would have attacked you now. Because the United States has become weak during the presidency of Joe Biden. And because you did not portray that strong man image, that image that Trump has done on the stage 2 days ago. That is what you need. Prepare for war if you want peace. Be ready at all times. You don't prepare when things happen. Then it's too late. Think for yourself to start up in the United States, the assembly lines, the manufacturing capabilities that was there in the Second World War. But it didn't happen overnight. It took 3 to 5 years to build that industry where they can push out 5 aircraft per day or whatever it was. So if we are ready now, at least we can face anything that's coming our way. Although we don't know what is coming our way and how exactly it's going to come our way, and you don't know how it's going to come your way, but you must prepare. And that's responsibility. Not taking everything for granted. And in South Africa, there's a lot of people who say you must just pray and believe. Pray and believe. Yes, of course, we must pray and believe. But we are the instruments. We must still do if we want to survive. The same as on your side. You can't sit back and go to church every Sunday, pray and believe the United States is going to be okay. You still have to prepare, and you must be willing to fight for your country if needs be.
100%. That's the bottom line here. It's about being prepared for the worst things, and if you're not, then you're just overcome by events, and that's the reality here. You know, it's the Chinese had a senior colonel who wrote a paper, I think in 1987, about China having the world's largest navy to dictate events in East Asia and the Pacific. 1987. At the time that Chinese senior colonel wrote that, the Chinese Navy had, I think, less than 100 ships, 60 capital ships, something like that. The U.S. Navy had over 600 ships. That Reagan had given us a 600-ship Navy, reinvigorated the Navy, and increased the size. Today, we're down to just over 300 ships, and today, China has the world's largest maritime fleet. They've surpassed this by a couple hundred ships. This is a 40-year plan. This was a visionary effort by a senior Chinese colonel major, or whatever they call them, senior colonel.
And he's probably not even in their defense force anymore. He's already retired or maybe even dead.
I think he is dead. But the point is, yeah, you make plans for down the road. And that's what leaders do. They prepare their people. They prepare society for what comes down the road. I mean, the smart people in IT are the ones that 20 years ago were thinking about artificial intelligence, and those were thinking about 30 years ago about voice to text translation and all these different things. Those are the smart people, and they were visionaries. And look, people are like, well, who can envision this? Well, Leonardo da Vinci envisioned helicopters in the 17th century. He envisioned all kinds of things that didn't come to fruition until later. Jules Verne envisioned space travel and the depths of the sea, and not that stupid venture that went to the Titanic where it imploded, but he envisioned things, submarines that didn't exist It takes visionaries. These aren't outrageous, outlandish, courageous, or ridiculous ideas, but people with vision. People who look ahead to what the possibilities can be and how you fight that. And that's why for me, it was so frustrating what happened with COVID, because the U.S. government, I thought in many ways, was prescient, because when I worked at Africa Command, and in Africa, we had a pandemic response program in which we provided resources to train African health departments and militaries on how to respond to an outbreak, a viral outbreak. And that program was very successful. And I can give a very concrete example of how it worked and how it was ignored by my own government. It worked when the Mono River region had an outbreak of Ebola viral fever. That Ebola broke out in Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. There was a patient who flew from Monrovia to Abuja in Nigeria. That person arrived, and they were far enough along in the incubation period, which was much shorter than traditional. It used to be 21 days before he got symptoms. Now, this was about 8 days after he's infected. He got to Nigeria and it started displaying symptoms of Ebola almost immediately. Well, the Nigerian Health Ministry, which had been trained by the U.S. government and the U.S. military in particular at conferences in Africa and around the world, they responded based on a plan they developed from that experience of us working with them. They isolated the victim. They quarantined him. They quarantined all the people he came in contact with and did effective contact tracing. And in a country of 208 million people, there are only something like 20 cases of Ebola. They squashed it. They stopped it. It could have been a slate wiper in Nigeria, but they stopped it. But then my government, when Rona comes around, they lose their mind and forget everything, and we don't do anything. So that shows you what preparation can do when you prepare for the worst. Otherwise, you get 28 days later that horror film in which zombies are all over the place. So anyway, yeah. But we probably...
That is very true.
Yeah, no, it is. I think it is absolutely true. Listen, it's been a while since we had a chance to catch up. I'm glad we did. And also, I promise to give you more advance warning so we can try to put something together next time. And I apologize if you went out of your way to put anything together on the short notice. And I'm grateful if you did. And thank you for that. But I hope that I'll be able to get back soon. I'm not sure when it'll be. But, I'm not a big fan of summer in South Africa. But in the Western Cape, I'm good with summer. So if we do something there, that'll be fun.
Yeah. No, Chris, it's great, but I think we should have the chat more often now.
Okay.
I think things have quieted down and settled. I am on the road still every now and then, and will be the beginning of August again. I will be away from here. But when we can,
okay.
Every second week, let's have a chat. We have scratched the surface tonight, but over the next 2 weeks, there's a lot of stuff and info that's going to come forward, which we can share with the people.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. And for the viewing audience, if you're wondering why Wyatt and I haven't been doing this regularly, because when we first started this program a few years ago, we said, hey, let's do it every fortnightly. But his calendar is very busy building up the Soutlander Civil Defense as part of Soutlanders at the time, a growing organization. Then the rift came, the split came, and he had to stabilize the organization and build and work on it. And then because someone wasn't running for the office and I've been encouraged to run, I stepped into the political fray. And so that made it difficult for us to do this. Well, now I'm not running for office and you've stabilized the organization and it's growing. So we can get back to doing this on a regular basis. I think obviously based on the turnout here, we've had quite a few views. We had over 260 were the peak, I think, of concurrent viewers, which is pretty good. And we do appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, folks, hit that button right below the video. I mean, it's real easy. I have an easy button right here. See, watch this. Watch what happens when you push this button.
That was easy.
Piece of cake. So hit that button right below the video. Become a subscriber. Go over to Wyatt's channel. You can see that he's also there. You can look him up. Look up Wyatt Toy, and you will be able to find him. And you can subscribe there. If you don't speak Afrikaans, then you're in for an Afrikaans lesson because a lot of his broadcast is in Afrikaans. But one thing he does say in English, I think, is condensed milk. I don't think he says that in Afrikaans.
It's very close to each other, the two words, condensed milk and condensed milk.
There you go. So it's almost the same.
Yeah. But, Chris, there must be a way how we can interconnect the channels as well, where it can benefit both of us.
Well, there's actually, I've never done this, but you can actually, I think, two channels can merge during a stream sometime. Let me look into that because another broadcaster asked me to do that at some point, and I hadn't quite figured it out. Maybe we can do that, and you can be broadcasting, and I'll be on, and then we bring our two audiences together and talk for a little bit. Obviously, we won't be speaking in Swahili. We'll be speaking in English.
Yeah, we can do that. I know there's a function like that, but I also don't understand everything. I've changed now over. The other night when you came in, I still is the main platform is YouTube, but I use StreamYard now for the chat itself. It's always difficult for me. I tried it with Zoom and Skype, but it's very difficult to bring in little clips, videos, and stuff. I don't understand that, and honestly, I don't have the time to find out how it's working. So, yeah, at least StreamYard makes it a little bit easier for me. But I know there's ways how we can merge certain things and how it can benefit both of the channels.
No, absolutely. Now, when I came in the other day on your conversation, by the way, that was by happenstance because I'm not getting notifications even though I'm a subscriber to your channel. It's very frustrating. It's nothing to do with you. It's a YouTube thing. But you had some young folks on there, and in my understanding of Afrikaans, reading is easier, but listening, I got the impression this was young Afrikaners talking about youth and things like that. You had several folks there. You had a young lady. I didn't catch her name. Where's she from?
Zoe Buddha.
Zoe, yeah.
She's here from Upington at the moment.
Okay.
She works in the office. She's one of the broadcasters of the radio station. Yes.
Okay.
And she handles with another youngster the morning broadcast, and they're all part of the SBB youth, the youth department.
Youth department. Okay. Abteilung in German.
We had a youth congress earlier this year, and it's important that the message that we are sending out must also reach the youngsters. Eventually, we might pass away. I think that the organization must continue to exist and to grow and to prepare people. Even if we change a little bit of focus along the way, it doesn't matter. But we must prepare the young people to be part of the solution in the end.
Well, in fact,
I think Zoe is watching tonight.
Okay, well, hey, Zoe, I enjoyed listening to all you folks talk the other night. She just got my attention. I was listening to her accent. But so, as you remember, I hope you remember that at the Pretoria East event we did last year, people ask me, what I could recommend, for Afrikaners and what you should do to ensure the survival of your culture. And remember, I said that, is anyone in the audience under the age of 40? Please raise your hand. And some hands went up. And I said, well, go have babies. Lots of them.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
But there's a lot of truth in it.
Yeah.
Because the immigrants are overtaking Europe. Even in South Africa, I mean, here is about between 10 and 30 million illegal immigrants in South Africa.
There's a lot there.
And they're just streaming in.
Yeah, uncontrolled. It's out of control. I mean, the border with Zimbabwe is a joke. I mean, and we've seen AfriForum. Jacques Broudrick has covered this story and has not made friends with the police up there as a consequence of it, but he's simply revealing the truth. And if it hurts the police's feelings, then that's too bad for them. They should do their job.
Yeah.
All right.
But let's see what happens now after Ian Cameron is
on the Police Services Commission. That should be interesting. But we'll see what happens there. But anyway, hey, listen, Venant, bye-bye, Donkey. It was a pleasure once again having this conversation with you. And we had some really consequential things to talk about. South Africa's elections, the assassination attempt on Trump, and then also the reorganization in the future for Soutlander civil defense. So thank you so much for that. It's always a pleasure. I'll give you a chance for the final word, and I'll let you drop off, and then I'll close our stream up.
Yes, thanks again. It's good to be back. That we got another platform to talk from. And my message to the people is, just remember, nobody in this world, the world has become very small with social media and everything that's going on. The whole world depends, it's interactive. So nothing in the world happens without a consequence to your own people. And where you are, no matter where you are in the world, there will always be consequences. That's why it's important to keep up to date with all things that happens in the world, whether it's the United States or Britain, and not focusing only on what's happening in your district, your town, or your province, or your country. The world is much larger than that. Chris, and with that, thanks. And good luck there on your side in the United States. I think there's an interesting couple of months lying ahead. And let's hope and pray Donald Trump made it to the final.
Well, 100%, Venant, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Fireside with the Colonels. Venant du Toit, South African Defense Force veteran, a former prisoner of war, accomplished author, farmer, statesman, and now the person responsible for the Soutlander Civil Defense Organization for the what if bad things go bad in South Africa. And I'm, of course, Colonel retired Chris Wyatt here on the East Coast of the United States. This is our segment. It's intended as a fortnightly. We haven't been able to do it fortnightly because of events, but we're going to get back to that sometime soon. So thank you for being here. Ronell S. is saying, who is the guest? It's Colonel Venant du Toit, now in his organization, and now also known as General Venant du Toit. So thank you all so much. We're going to wrap it up here. Have a lovely day. The Republican National Convention is underway. I will give an update of that tonight after I listen to what's going on and give you a summary. It won't be a long one. The big events for the Republican National Convention will occur tomorrow and on Wednesday. And of course, Donald Trump will be speaking, accepting the nomination, assuming the Secret Service doesn't, fail to protect him in the next few days. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here and we'll go on. You all take care. Well, hang on a second. That wasn't what I meant to push. I pushed the wrong button there. That happens sometimes as senior moments. All right, everybody, take care. God bless. Have a lovely day. And we do appreciate your time being here. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, Venant, I cut off his sound there. He said thank you and stay well. So sorry about that, folks. And cheers.